Has you ever stood in front of your team, your organization, maybe even just your family, and felt that immense weight of expectation?
Oh, yeah.
And you just realize the path forward it's completely shrouded in fog. All those standard strategies, the plans you meticulously crafted,
They suddenly feel useless.
exactly. They feel
Why?
insufficient when the future is just pure ambiguity.
It's the really unsettling feeling of standing at the edge of something huge where, every single step forward requires a leap of faith because clarity has just evaporated.
Right.
And in those moments, people, they rarely look to the leader for answers the leader doesn't actually have. They're looking for something deeper, for like orientation, stability.
A conviction.
A conviction, yes, that the journey is still worth undertaking.
That deep conviction is precisely where we are focusing today.
Mm.
We've done a really comprehensive deep dive into sources examining what's called hope-led leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And the core finding, which I find quite provocative, is that real enduring leadership in times of, complexity and crisis, it's not based on cheap platitudes or blind optimism.
No. It's anchored in a resilient, actionable force, and that force is known as hope.
Right.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to show you why hope isn't just a soft virtue or some optional sentiment. It's a fundamental responsibility for anyone in a leadership role.
A responsibility. I like that.
We're going to unpack its psychological dimensions, understand how it's so different from fragile optimism, and see exactly how it transforms that organizational uncertainty into, well, sustainable forward momentum.
So the idea is to give you the knowledge quickly, but with the depth you need for those, moments that can really reframe how you think about leading in a crisis.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this crucial first distinction. The authors we studied they were unanimous.
Yeah.
Leaders who fail to intentionally cultivate and embody hope, they risk stagnation.
Organizational stagnation and that slow, kind of insidious erosion of trust.
Right. When you're facing, rapid market shifts, economic downturns, any kind of crisis, waiting for perfect clarity is a luxury almost no one can afford.
You can't. The leader who thrives has to proactively anchor their people in a hope that's steadfast, purposeful, and, this is the key, actionable.
And that brings us right to that critical distinction, the one that's so central to this research. Hope versus optimism.
Yes. Optimism, as it's defined in these sources, it's quite fragile. It's an expectation that circumstances will improve, but it's based purely on, current trends or wishful thinking.
So it collapses the moment the evidence turns negative.
Instantly. The market crashes, and so does the optimism.
So optimism is basically relying on external conditions to bail you out. It's a fair weather projection.
Precisely. But the concept of hope we're talking about here is fundamentally resilient. It's anchored beyond the external evidence. It depends on character and foundational promises, not outcomes.
Okay.
The research points out that the Hebrew word for hope, tikva, literally evokes the image of a cord or a rope. Something that binds your turbulent present to a reliable future promise. It's this confident expectation elpis in the Greek that stays firm even when everything around you is just swirling.
That rope analogy is brilliant. It's something you can actively grab onto when the ground beneath you is shaking. Can you give us an example that really illustrates that defiance?
Sure. We can look at the ancient response of the prophet Habakkuk. He was facing just utter economic and political ruin.
Total collapse.
Total collapse. And his response was essentially, though the fig tree does not bud and there are no grapes on the vines and everything I rely on fails, yet I will rejoice in the Lord.
Wow.
Now that is not optimism. He's not expecting a bumper crop next year. That is defiant trust. It's resilience in the face of demonstrable present lack. That's the stability a leader has to offer.
But I need to challenge this for a minute. In a modern metrics-driven world, how do you communicate this kind of deep, maybe even spiritual hope without alienating a purely secular team? Doesn't hope sound a bit, passive or worse, like denial?
That's a really necessary clarification. And the research is emphatic on this. Hope is absolutely not denial of reality. It's not minimizing suffering.
Okay.
The most profound expressions of hope we see in history, like the Psalms the authors reference, they are brutally honest about the pain and uncertainty. Hope acknowledges the full diagnosis, trouble is certain, setbacks are guaranteed, but it refuses the diagnosis of despair.
So you have to start by being honest about the trouble.
You must. If you pretend the trouble isn't real, your hope becomes meaningless. And the research is just as clear that hope is not passive waiting.
Right.
It is faith translated into motion. Think about the effort required of leaders like Noah building an ark before the first drop of rain, or Abraham leaving his home without any GPS coordinates.
No app.
No map. Hope is the internal engine that generates active, immediate movement. It resists the paralysis that uncertainty so often creates. It's active endurance.
This shift from hope as a personal virtue to an organizational necessity. That's where it gets really compelling for leadership studies. Let's move into section 2, where we talk about the crisis of vision. We spend so much energy on strategy, on vision casting, but the authors highlight that discouragement is often treated as a personal failing.
Right, like it's your fault, you feel bad.
Exactly, when in fact, it is a consequential condition of the heart that can spread through an entire organization like a silent epidemic.
And it becomes contagious because, as one of the findings puts it, vision without hope simply exhausts. Vision answers, where are we going? But hope answers the deeper, more critical question for sustaining effort. Is it worth continuing when the journey is costly, difficult, and the results aren't immediately visible?
Without hope, the vision just becomes a treadmill. You know the destination, but every single step feels like unnecessary pressure. You see these historical examples of groups with clear vision failing right at the finish line.
And the classic organizational failure is that ancient story of the Israelites at the border of the Promised Land. They had a destination, a perfect vision of where they were going.
They could see
They could practically see it. But when they faced opposition, the giants in the land, they lacked the foundational hope rooted in trust. And vision immediately collapsed into crippling fear and paralysis. The leadership it failed to sustain resilience.
And this is where we see the immense cost of hope deficiency. It ties directly to that famous proverb, where there is no vision, the people perish. But you mentioned there's a linguistic subtlety here that really changes the meaning for modern leaders.
Exactly. We found a deep dive into the Hebrew word used there, para. It doesn't mean instantaneous, dramatic destruction. It means an unraveling, a loss of restraint.
And unraveling.
So hope deficiency doesn't cause a sudden catastrophe. It causes a slow cultural decay.
And unraveling. Okay, if we look at that through a modern organizational lens, what are the 3 clearest signs of para, this unraveling, in a team or a company?
The first and most common is burnout. And the sources define this brilliantly as exhaustion without expectation.
Exhaustion without expectation.
People are working hard, they're putting in the hours, but without that hopeful sense that the effort connects to something meaningful or permanent, the exertion just becomes unsustainable. You're just running on fumes.
So it's not just fatigue, it's a loss of meaning that fuels the fatigue.
Precisely. The second sign of this unraveling is the slide from commitment to compliance.
Okay.
When hope is low, leaders settle for minimal obedience. It's enforced by rules, metrics, or pressure, rather than that voluntary creative engagement fueled by genuine belief in the future.
So you get transactional effort, not transformative energy.
Exactly. People do the minimum to avoid punishment, not the maximum, because they believe in the goal.
That explains why so many organizations feel like they're just pushing paperwork instead of solving problems. And the third sign?
Survival thinking. Decisions stop being shaped by faithful risk and ambition, and instead they're shaped purely by a fear of loss, fear of change, fear of competition, fear of making a mistake.
You stop innovating.
You stop innovating and you dedicate all your resources to just preserving the status quo. And that is fatal to any organization facing volatility.
That really makes the case for why hope is not just a nice-to-have, but a moral and spiritual obligation. It's the only mechanism that keeps the whole system from unraveling.
Absolutely. The research describes hope using this powerful imagery, an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. And think about what an anchor is for. It's not for calm, sunny days.
It's for storms.
It's designed specifically for violent storms. Hope stabilizes the human spirit precisely when your control is limited and visibility is low. You might not control the waves, but you can control what you're tethered to.
I think many listeners, myself included, need to periodically check the strength of our personal anchor. Okay, let's move into the practical application. What does this hope-led leadership look like, day to day, when you don't have all the metrics or a clear 5-year plan? Because leading often demands conviction without certainty.
It fundamentally means leaders are called to base their actions on promises, not vague wishes, but foundational organizational promises or core values, rather than waiting for full, complete information.
Okay.
And the most effective tool for this isn't data alone, it's narrative.
Mm.
Leaders have to use powerful storytelling to mobilize hearts. Metrics inform, but stories inspire collective courage and loyalty.
That's a crucial distinction. Metrics can quantify a problem, but a story gives the problem meaning. Can you walk us through that Nehemiah example you highlighted? It's a great demonstration of this.
Certainly. So when Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem to rebuild the destroyed city walls, he faced immense damage, opposition, and a deeply discouraged populace.
He didn't start with a spreadsheet.
He did not start with a 300-page architectural plan. He started with a narrative. He spoke about the devastation candidly, but then he immediately testified to the source of his confidence. The gracious hand of my God upon me.
He externalized the source of his stability.
Exactly, and hope became the catalyst. He didn't just tell them to work. He made the work part of a hopeful story. And that is the difference between management and leadership. Management focuses on logistics.
And hope-led leadership focuses on inspiring courage despite the logistics.
You've got it.
And this reinforces that need to anchor vision, not in fluctuating outcomes like quarterly earnings, which are always changing, but in enduring values.
Yes. Like integrity, shared purpose, faithfulness to the mission. Values are the stable points when results are unpredictable. They provide the psychological safety you need for the next principle, taking risks. Hope is the foundational gateway to what the sources call faithful risk.
This is a critical point. When people hear risk, they often think reckless. How is hope-driven risk different?
It's defined as strategic obedience, not recklessness. Recklessness is emotional and blind. Strategic obedience is disciplined and intentional.
Now,
It means acting decisively within the parameters of your established values and mission and refusing to let fear decide your strategy. Hope pushes leaders out of the safety of the known, where most competitors stay stuck, and into potential opposition, which makes the action costly but strategically essential.
so if I'm a leader trying to implement this, how do I practically model this daily? I mean, it sounds exhausting to be the constant source of confidence.
It is exhausting if it relies solely on your charisma. The leadership demands two things here. First, consistent, intentional communication that frames setbacks within that hopeful narrative. You always have to connect the pain of the present effort to the promise of the future purpose.
And the second.
Second, you must aggressively protect your inner life, your spiritual and emotional formation. You are transmitting either confidence or anxiety to your people, and you can only transmit what you internally possess.
That's a powerful point about transmission. Before we move to our final thought, let's circle back to that practical mechanism you mentioned. How does a leader actually articulate a hope statement?
A hope statement is intentionally concise, and it's distinct from a vision or mission statement. A mission statement describes what you do today. A vision statement describes the destination. A hope statement is the declaration of how you intend to carry the organization's soul during the struggle.
Give me a hypothetical example.
Okay, if your organization is navigating a multi-year restructuring, the mission might be deliver superior software solutions. The hope statement might be something like, we commit to pursuing innovation with relentless integrity, trusting that our purpose is greater than our current uncertainty, and we will emerge from this stronger, not just surviving.
I see.
It translates that abstract principle of hope into an actionable, ethical commitment for the team. It gives them something stable to lean on.
And this brings us back to the source of that stability.
It does. The findings really emphasize that leaders must receive hope before they can effectively give it away. We see this in Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you, so that you may overflow with hope. This means that enduring leadership isn't sustained by sheer force of willpower. It has to be fed by an intentional, external spiritual resource. The well has to be replenished.
This has been a true deep dive, translating spiritual principles into really essential organizational resilience. Let's quickly summarize the critical takeaways for you. Hope is defined here as a moral and spiritual obligation for leaders, not just some optional sentiment.
And it is active, courageous, and disciplined, the complete antithesis of passive optimism.
And fundamentally, it is the only reliable force that sustains vision and resilience when clarity just isn't available.
And remember that whether you're leading a major corporation, managing a small team, or just navigating your own personal life, the sources call the home the first school of leadership. Hope is the lifeblood. It's the sophisticated mechanism by which human struggle and suffering are integrated into a larger, purposeful story, transforming temporary pain into enduring influence.
So as you head into your next meeting, your next challenge, or your next difficult conversation, we want to leave you with the ultimate measure of influence that this research prompted us to consider. It's a moment of profound self-reflection.
When people leave my presence, do they carry more hope or less?
That, perhaps more than any metric, is the enduring measure of your leadership legacy.